Today, we have special guest Emma McAdam with us from the YouTube channel Therapy in a Nutshell. She's like a celebrity. You guys should be so excited. I know I am. And she is a licensed marriage and family therapist. And I know, Emma, on your channel, you talk managing anxiety, depression, intrusive thoughts. So I want to kind of cover this from the person maybe who's in early recovery, from their point of view, and from the family point of view, if that's okay. Since we got you, I just want to get as much out of you as I can. And it's one of the things that you, to some degree, have to tolerate, even though it feels pretty unfair and definitely not fun. Do you have any thoughts about that for us?
Oh, it's a good question, because that does sound really like, I don't like it when people are up in my business. I don't like it when people are telling me what to do or like checking on me with like that tone. It drives me. It definitely gets my guff up. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Where, you know, I just get like a little bit oppositional. I get a little bit like, no, I'm in control of my life. Leave me alone. And that's not necessarily the most helpful thing to do. So right.
And we do talk, and just so you know, we talk a lot on the channel for family members. We ask them not to do that, and they try really hard not to, but it still sneaks through sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. And so if you're the person who's getting checked up on, I mean, so this is like, how are we going to manage these relationships, and how are we going to manage these emotions? So primarily, let's start with the emotions, right? Let's start with yourself. Noticing and naming. This is the first step of processing emotions. So you've got to be like, what is this feeling I'm having? I am feeling angry, irritated, frustrated. Are you feeling ashamed? Are you feeling defensive? Are you feeling uncertain? Are you feeling annoyed? So just start by like noticing your patterns. What are you most likely to feel? What sort of things might, like, in what situations will you notice that? So if you know, like, so for example, if my mother-in-law comes in and is like, hey, here's what we're going to do with this activity, I know that that's the sort of thing that's going to like trigger my personal sense of like, wait, this is my house. This is my, like, I should be in charge here. So I can kind of predict that's the sort of situation where I'm going to get, like, my hackles raised.
It's like a button. This is one of my buttons, and I know I got to be careful with this button, right?
So you just gain some awareness, and then you say, okay, what's that feeling? What you got to give that emotion. So a feeling is not, oh, she makes me, she's so rude, she makes me so mad, whatever, like that. Well, mad is a word. Mad is an emotion word, but using an emotion word is really important. So I feel. And you can't follow that with like a like or that. I feel like this is so unfair. I feel like the world's out to get me. I feel like you cannot follow the word feel with a like or that. You have to say, I feel anxious. I feel angry. I feel stressed. You got to name that. And then say, hello, anger, or hello, guilt. You got to say hello to it.
I love that, because it puts it back, keeps it on you. And I think in early recovery, you really only know one feeling. It's called, I need a drink, or I need a fill in the blank.
Yep. As we talk today, when it comes down to it, would you agree with this? You tell me if I'm off on this, but most, if not all, desire to use something addictive is based on the need to avoid something uncomfortable.
Oh, yes, 100%. Or the only other time is enhance something good, celebrate.
There it is. Yeah.
That's the only other one, but...
That's a good point, right? So you want to feel something more, but you, like with a lot of substance use disorders, it's like, I can't tolerate this feeling. I need to make it go away. I need to make it go away as fast as possible. And the fastest, most predictable way to do that is to use a substance.
Right.
So the alternative to this is processing emotions, like actually working through emotions. And this takes a lot longer, but it works really good in the long run, right? This is a sustainable strategy, is processing emotions. And, the shameless plug here, but I do have a 30-part video series on this. Like, this is not like there's just one skill that you need to learn. It's like, oh, let's take this step by step by step. And once you learn these steps, you can develop a predictable way to work through and resolve emotions instead of just avoiding them or making them go away or suppressing them or blowing up and reacting to them.
I love the idea of someone in early recovery going through a course like that, because I think so often it's in our mind, it's like, what are you doing? You go to meetings, you talk to your sponsor, you work the 12 steps, and there's not, even in treatment, there's just not enough attention paid to developing life skills
Yeah.
to deal with the uncomfortableness. I feel like doing something like that is just as effective, maybe even more than some of the other like really typical just substance abuse, very focused in kind of treatment options or support groups or that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, the tricky thing is you've got a crisis you have to manage, which is like, don't drink today, and you've got this long-term problem of like, I haven't learned how to manage my emotions. I haven't learned how to solve my life problems without substances to help me or hurt me, obviously. And so you're trying to balance both those needs in substance abuse, right? Like the crisis. Can we get through this moment? Can we cope? Can we get to my support group instead of, going and to the bar or someplace I'm going to drink or use? And so you've got to be doing those short-term things that are going to hold you up while you're like trying not to drown, right? Like this is the life jacket, right? If someone doesn't know how to swim, you start with a life jacket or a life instructor or a lifeguard. You're starting with those steps, the crisis and the coping skills. But coping skills don't help people manage emotions. Coping skills help people get through emotions in the short term without doing something stupid. So then what I'm talking about is this process of learning how to swim. And you can't learn how to swim today. You can practice today. You can't learn how to swim this week, but you can practice this week. And it might take a month or longer, depending on what your swimming needs are. And so we got to take this two-pronged approach, and the short-term stuff really does matter. It's important. And then the long-term stuff is like little by little chip away, learn those relational skills and emotional skills. So going back to someone who's like family members bothering them, the basics of this are, can I notice and name my own emotions? Can I acknowledge what I can and can't change? So I can't change my mother, my mother-in-law, my partner, my child. I can't change them, but I can influence them. I can set boundaries. I can manage my own reactivity. And so that's kind of how you, I would say, work through that.
But then some of these other more advanced skills might be like, how do I have a conversation with my loved one, and what's fair and appropriate, and how do I set some boundaries, but also, be aware of, their needs as well. So it's sort of in the moment, but don't just get in the crisis mode of just getting through it. Developing those other skills will keep the next one from coming.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. I love that.
Yep. And some of those swimming skills are really hard skills that people work on for, I would say relational skills are things I've been working on for decades. How about you?
Me too.
Like relationships are so important and they're hard. So learning how to have a conversation, and like when someone drives you crazy, how to like talk with them and accept that they like are how they are, and also invite them to level up a little bit. Like it's complicated stuff. So, being a little patient with that, and then learning, assertiveness skills. Saying like, this is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm experiencing, without saying like, you need to stop, or, all these blaming and attacking.
I think there's this other type of anxiety or uncomfortableness that people feel, and it's about their own shame and guilt about everything that happened when they were in active addiction. Because it's like, now you're coming out of this fog, and now you're dealing with these messes that have been made, and you're looking more honestly at things, and that is very distressing. And to me, that's almost like a different kind of stress that you might be dealing with. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, I'm sure it's a really big trigger for a lot of people, because like, let's say that they're trying to do recovery and they're trying to get healthy, and then, they're reminded of something terrible they did, or something that really hurt someone else. And then they start feeling like a terrible human being. And that's just really, really uncomfortable to feel that way. And then they need that feeling to go away. Right? If you have this rule in your head that I can't handle feeling this way, then your options, like I must feel differently now, your options are very limited. And that often includes unhealthy behaviors, right? So let's look at shame and guilt for a second. From my perspective, you tell me if you would agree with this. From my perspective, guilt is the idea of I made a mistake, and shame is the idea of I am a mistake. I am a bad person. So let's say I stole money from my family members to buy my drugs, and now they all hate me, or they don't trust me, or they won't let me in their house, or I'm not invited to Thanksgiving. And you sit there and you're laying in bed at night and you're thinking, man, I'm just a terrible human being. This is awful. Like, why even try to recover? No one's ever going to forgive me. And you start kind of going down this like toilet bowl spiral of like, I just suck so bad. right?
Yeah. In addiction recovery, you often hear people say things like, that's your addiction talking to you, and your addiction is trying to beat you up, or your disease is trying to get you to throw your hands in the air and stop fighting it. It's just sort of a way of understanding this voice and disconnecting this voice and this thought from who you are.
Yeah. Yep. And I would say, anytime you're going to a label for yourself, that's what shame is, right? Shame is labeling yourself as bad, broken, deficient, permanently. Like, this is a part of who you are and there's nothing you can do about it. You have to get honest and say that's a lie. Like, that is straight up a lie. Anytime. So these labels, these self-labels, and this is true outside of recovery too, which is these self-labels are incredibly self-justifying. We don't mean it. We don't intentionally mean to be justifying ourselves because we think we're doing it kind of righteously. We're beating ourselves up, right? Oh, I'm not like excusing myself. I'm beating myself up. Well, those labels
always leads to another bad decision.
That's right. They excuse you from facing your guilt, honestly. And I would consider guilt, it's not always this way, but the way I'm going to use the word guilt today is that let's use the word guilt as a pure emotion. Like, I punched my neighbor in the face. I feel guilty for this. I should not have done that. So emotions serve a function. They aren't just bad things that happen to us. Emotions serve functions. And if I punch my neighbor in the face, the emotion of guilt should motivate me to make repairs, to make changes so that I don't punch people in the face in the future, to talk to my neighbor, to apologize, to ask them what I can do to make this right, to if I get charged or if I need to pay for their medical bills, whatever it is, to make repairs, right?
Right.
And so emotions, like the actual Latin word is emotion, right? Mote is for movement. Emotion should make us move. So guilt makes us move, should, when we face it honestly, help us move toward fixing things and identifying what kind of person do I want to be and taking tiny steps toward that. Whereas shame does the exact opposite. I'm a terrible human being. Then what? Well, why bother trying to fix that relationship? Well, why bother trying to stay sober? Well, why bother living, right?
It's kind of this give up. I can't help it. It's just who I am. I'm always going to mess things up kind of attitude.
Yep. And so as soon as you notice yourself going to that shame place and giving yourself labels, you have to be honest enough to say, that's a lie. I'm using that as an excuse. Even though it doesn't feel like an excuse because you're beating yourself up, it's an excuse. And instead ask yourself this really hard question. If I feel ashamed about this, what do I actually value? If I feel like I'm a terrible human being and I feel bad about that, it actually means I value being a good person. And I'm not maybe living my life the way I want to be living.
Oh, yeah, I really like that. Right.
And then you identify, how do I want to be living? And then you have to summon up every freaking ounce of courage you have to say, I'm going to try again to live a little bit like closer to the life I want to be living. So with the example, I punched my neighbor in the face. Oh my gosh, I feel like a terrible human being. I'm a bad person. Okay, wait, hold up. Take a deep breath. Okay. You saying you're a bad person, is that helping anyone? Is that helping your neighbor? No. You feel like a bad person because I actually believe I shouldn't solve problems with violence. I actually believe I should not be mean to people who aren't doing, yeah.
Right.
We aren't going to the details, but obviously if I needed to protect someone, maybe that would be the right action. But in this case, it's not. That's not why this happened. And so I have never punched my neighbor in the face, but this is a theoretical, right?
Like if they let their dog come poop in your yard kind of situation.
Yeah. Something like that, right?
Yeah.
And so then I got to identify, what kind of person do I want to be? Well, I want to solve problems peacefully. I want to manage my own emotions better. And so then you say, what action can I take about that to act on this? What action can I take? Or so maybe you got in a huge fight with your girlfriend or your boyfriend and you have this huge blow up and you're like, oh man, no one's ever going to love me. I'm unlovable. Boom. There's a label, there's shame, and it doesn't help you fix anything. So you say, what kind of person do I want to be? Well, I want to have a healthy relationship. Maybe I need to actually break up with this person. Maybe I need to actually repair with this person. What kind of things do I value? And so that is my personal approach to helping people work through shame. Shame is a lie.
I hadn't really thought of the way you said it, but I really like it, which is using the shame as an indicator for what you really value, instead of using it for some kind of label, which really just results in sort of letting yourself off the hook. But if saying, if I feel bad about this, then it must mean that X, Y, Z or whatever is important to me.
Yeah. The things we're most emotional about are the things that matter most and the things we actually care about. And emotions can get twisted and distorted, right? I can have false guilt. I can feel too guilty about things I shouldn't feel guilty about. But when we really clarify when we notice them and name them, say, hello, guilt, what are you about? What are you trying to show me? Do you serve a function here? What are you trying to tell me about the kind of person I want to be? Then we can use that emotion as like a really cool motivator. Instead of this idea of like, oh, there's positive emotions and there's negative emotions. And guilt feels uncomfortable, so it's bad. So I shouldn't feel it, so I should avoid it. So the way I avoid it is I could list 100 coping skills, or I could use drugs, or I could use sex, or I could use whatever, video gaming to avoid. Or I can just say, guilt, what do you have to teach me?
Right. I like to think of it, they're like little indicator lights on your dashboard.
Yep.
Yeah. They're just little lights giving you a little piece of information. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of times when we're healthy, emotions are those indicators that tell us, oh, something's not right here. Let's fix it. Let's take it to the shop. Let's get it looked at. Let's find out what the problem is and let's fix it. And every once in a while, it's one of those dumb TPMS sensor things. And your tire is actually just fine.
Yes.
Right. And it's just your sensor that's like off a little bit. So sometimes when we feel anxiety, for example, we're not actually in any danger. We just feel anxious. And when we sit with it and notice it and look at it, we're like, oh, actually, I'm safe. Or like maybe I feel guilty as a mom. And it's like, oh, I feel like a terrible mom because I didn't spend 4 hours playing with my child. And then we look at it like, well, my child actually got fed. They got loved. I didn't beat them. Like they have a safe home. We're okay. And so sometimes those emotions are actually like not to be trusted.
I love that you used, a while ago, you used the word lie, like a thought is a lie. And that was so cool because it's so easy to just believe, if I think it or feel it, it's truth.
Right.
And that's not the case.
That's right. Our thoughts and our feelings lie to us all the time. So we use them as informative, but not decisive, right? We don't always believe them, but we can look at them and ask them.
Especially in early recovery, because I think your brain chemistry is still like normalizing and stabilizing out. And so your emotions are just so much more unstable. You know, you're up, you're down, everything feels bigger than it normally would. And you have to really stop to question it even more in that early recovery state.
And maybe people would think this is offensive and unfeminist of me, but like when you're on your period, like right before your period, and everyone seems terrible and everyone seems awful and like you hate yourself or something, right? Like when you have awareness that your period's coming right up, you're like, well, this is just my period speaking, right? But like I still feel this way, but I'm not going to believe it.
Right. I do that same thing. I'm always like, am I really this mad? You know, and I have to like stop and ask myself because it feels real in the moment.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so like with those examples, it's like you've got to like develop the ability to just slow yourself down. Like, oh, I feel this way. If it's true, it'll still be true tomorrow and I can take action.
And as far, I like that you mentioned also the family member side. So let's move over to the family member side, because it's really a parallel process for the person who's struggling with an addiction and their family member. And it's really the same processes going on, but maybe, you know, one person's resisting this thing and the other person's resisting that thing, but it's still the very same thing. So I feel like there's a lot of shame and guilt that the family member feels for maybe things they've said and done while the person's in active addiction. Maybe they feel like somehow they've contributed to the problem. They struggle with those same emotional triggers.
Totally. And I think that's so good that you bring awareness to that, because so like if you're the parent of someone who's struggling, as a parent, you're going to wonder and worry, what did I do wrong and what have I done? And you desperately want your child to be healthy. And that same goes to other roles. But I think it's important, just like addiction is kind of a desperate attempt to avoid uncomfortable emotions, trying to control your loved one, trying to force them into recovery, or trying to force them to recover. It's when I say force them into recovery, sometimes you can like help someone get into a placement that's helpful, right? But like trying to control someone else is also a desperate attempt to avoid your own emotions.
Right.
Like, you have to acknowledge, like, this is what I'm feeling, and I can't control other people to regulate my own emotions. There's a saying in acceptance and commitment therapy, which is kind of one of my main approaches, which is don't just do something, sit there. So when we have these intense emotions, they're really uncomfortable. We have this intense drive to just make them go away.
Mm-hmm.
And as an addict, that might look like using. And as a family member, it might look like controlling, yelling, screaming, like lecturing, avoiding, escaping,
Mm-hmm.
right? All of those behaviors. And that's just another form of like, I can't tolerate my feelings. I can't regulate my behaviors. So instead, don't just do something, sit there, slow it down, slow it down. Like, that's always the first step of emotion processing.
It sounds counselor, like something us counselors would say, feel your feelings. I try to avoid saying stuff like that. But
I do too. I always feel so dumb.
Let it sort of flow through and come out the other side and make some sense of it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so saying feel your feelings, what does that look like on a practical level? Because this is a skill that can be learned. It's not just like a woo, feel your feelings.
Right.
And so for both the addict and the helper or the family member, there are some things you can do to slow it down. And obviously, there's ones people have heard of, like, take a slow breath. And the ones I mentioned earlier, name it, give it a name. Hello, anger. Hello, anxiety. Here you are. Hello, fear. As a family member, fear is probably a really big one.
Oh,
or
yeah.
Anger.
Mm-hmm.
So notice it, name it, take a deep breath. And then the things that I like being a little bit more active than just sitting there and meditating upon things. I like to write. I'm a huge fan of writing and diagramming. So I might write, oh my gosh, my person is doing all these things and it's driving me crazy and I'm so scared and I'm so worried. And then I might write feelings and I might put that in a circle. Like, I feel scared, I feel anxious. And then I might write but they, and I might write everything I'm angry about. And then I might write, so just writing it, because there's something about writing it, making it concrete, that really can help bring clarity. And clarity is the next step in processing emotion. You got to clarify, what can I do? What can't I do?
It sort of forces you out of just that plain emotional state into some sort of thinking state. Because just to even, put the letters on the paper forces you into that other part of your brain, which then helps you to sort of sort through it and then make decisions. I call it make strategic decisions instead of emotional reactions about what to do about any given situation.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that you bring that up. That's a really good point, because it's taking you those different parts of your brain and it's shifting you to think. And one of the most powerful things we do in therapy is making things that are vague and nebulous and just making them concrete, making them solid. So we can just say, oh, there's nothing I can do about this, or there's something I can do about this. It's one or the other.
Right. And in recovery, that it's the whole serenity prayer thing, the things I can change and the things I can't. Yeah,
absolutely. I think about that all the time. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I can't change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Right? That's right. Yeah.
Yep. And then I'll sometimes have people do a locus of control activity, which is the same thing. You take a piece of paper, you put 3 columns. What can't I change? What can I change? And in the middle, there's some things you can influence. You can influence the person you're trying to help, but you usually can't force them.
Right. And that's what we talk a lot about on the channel, is how to have that influence, right? Forcing them is the least effective way to influence someone trying to sort of go directly at them. Right. One of the big things I think that family members particularly struggle with that causes them anxiety is, what if they relapse? Or are they relapsing? Or what am I going to do, if they drink again or whatever? How would you go about managing that kind of thought?
I'm going to write that down really quick, because I also follow my own advice.
So modeling, I love it, modeling.
What if they relapse? What was the other one?
What if they relapse? What if they don't get it back? What if they don't get back under control? What am I going to do if they relapse?
Yep. Yeah, or are they relapsing, right?
I mean,
Are
it starts
they?
a whole spiral. Does that mean they have to go back to treatment? Will they stop once they start?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're talking about a couple different things here, and one of them is worry, and then one of them is like it's a lot of worry actually. All of those are worries, right?
It's a lot of worry, yeah.
So let's identify that. Let's name it what it is, right? This is worry. Worry is a thought behavior,
Mm-hmm.
right? Worry and in managing worry is a skill that can be learned as well. When you know what to do with worry, you can get a lot better so that those worries aren't taking over your life and making you feel sick to your stomach all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Or angry or whatever. So with worry, it's acknowledging these are thoughts and also admitting that worry is sometimes helpful and sometimes not helpful. So chronic worry where you're constantly just ruminating all day long. What if they relapse? What if they relapse? What will I do if they relapse? What will I do if they relapse? Just thinking that all day long, you're going to make your nervous system sick,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're going to get stuck in that fight or flight mode and you're going to get sick, both physically and emotionally. It makes you anxious, right?
Right, because as a family member, there's so many pieces of it. There's the, what if they relapse? And there's the sort of standard, I don't want to go back through that again. But then there's this whole other fight that happens inside that's about you feel guilty for staying. You feel like you're an idiot if you keep like trying and supporting them or whatever. But you also feel guilty if you don't, and you kind of feel held hostage by no matter which way you go, it doesn't feel good.
Yeah, that's true. And when you're working with someone who's an addict, there's a lot of not feel good options. So I have 4 bullet points for dealing with worry. 4 bullet points.
We'll take them. We'll take all your bullet points. We want them.
So the first one is worry is a thought behavior. It's something you are doing. It's not something that happens to you. It's something you're doing, but you can externalize it a little bit, kind of like we said, like giving it a name. So like, hello, worry, nice to see you there, and catching yourself when you're worrying. And if you find yourself worrying all the time, one of the ways you can kind of notice that you're worrying more, you set Insight Timer on your phone. It's a free app, or some other timer to go off throughout the day. And when that timer goes off, you check yourself. Am I getting lost in worry right now? Am I, because worry is something we do kind of subconsciously.
And can become like a habit or just
absolutely. Yep. Worry becomes a habit. It becomes these neural pathways in your brain that get deep and strong. And then you do it all the time. And that's generalized anxiety disorder, basically. So noticing that you're worrying, catching yourself doing it, and then giving it boundaries. So our brain loves boundaries. Relationships love boundaries. Everything loves boundaries. So you say to your worry, you do scheduled worry. This sounds crazy, but you plan in a time every day to worry for half an hour to an hour. Don't do it right before bed. Don't do it first thing in the morning. I think lunch is a great time to worry, or before dinner, something like that, right? Is a great time. You plan it in and you say, I'm going to spend, because worry serves a function. Let's go back one step. Worry is not some terrible thing that happens to you. Worry serves a function when you do it right. Worry is our brain's evolved way to look for upcoming threats and try to creatively come up with solutions to manage them.
Make a plan.
Yep. So functional worry is great. Chronic worry all day, every day is not great. That's just like a little spiral of poop. So, so you give your worry some boundaries. So you gain awareness around it. That's number one. Worry is a thought. It's a behavior I'm engaging in, and I want to catch myself doing it. Then you give it boundaries. Say, I'm going to worry at a very specific time every day. I'm going to plan 12:30 to 1 o'clock to worry. And it's best if you worry on paper. Again, because our brain can run really, really fast and our emotional catch up runs a little bit slower. So if you worry on paper, it makes it more concrete, and it makes it so your brain can catch up and solve problems. So you worry on paper. So you write down this question: what if they don't get it under control? What if they relapse? Okay, so you write that down on paper. You say, what if they do relapse? And then you do number 3, the locus of control, also known as the serenity prayer. You say, okay, if they do that, what are my options? What can I control? And you write down what you can control, and you write down what can't I control. So what you can't control is like, I will set boundaries. I won't let them see my kids. I won't give them money, or I will tell them they have to go to treatment if they want to see my kids, or I will tell them I want to check in with their therapist if they want to see my kids, or something like that, right? You choose what's in my control. And you make a list of it. You can make a million crazy ideas on that. What's in my control? I can choose to throw eggs at them. Yes, you can. You can choose that. There are consequences to this, but you can choose that, right? You can just make this list and you circle the ones you think might be effective. And you write down everything that's not in your control. And when it comes to boundaries in relationships, I find that really helpful because boundaries are kind of big and jumbly and confusing. And so by writing it down, you can gain more clarity about like, what of all of these options are helpful? Yeah, I could like stalk their phone. I could put GPS trackers on their car. I could like follow them to the bar. I could call all their friends and tell them to leave my son alone, right? Like you could like.
I could call their sponsor and tell their sponsor that they realize. I could call their counselor, right? Yeah.
You can make a list of all the things you could do.
Right.
And you have to ask yourself, which of these is going to help my long-term goal of my loved one making forward progress in their journey? But also my long-term goal of me being healthy and happy and safe.
I think that's so cool, right? As you were saying that about the writing it down and then circling it, the thought that came to my mind is there's a phrase in recovery use a lot, or I use a lot, I say your side of the street, their side of the street. And in my mind, I'm like circling my side of the street ones. Okay, this is my side of the street. This is my side of the street. I was just sort of visualizing that as you were saying that. This is their side of the street.
Yep, and you can cross off their side of the street, right?
Right.
Exactly. Yep, you write all, like I like really big pieces of paper for this. And I do this in therapy all the time. People come into therapy and there's 50 things going wrong in their life. So we list them all. We just list them all. And then which of these can't you do anything about? Cross them off. Which of these can you do something about? Circle them. Okay. Pick one.
Pick one.
And then put that in your phone, and that's what we're doing this week.
Okay.
But when you set those limits around it, all of a sudden you don't spend all your time in bed, laying in bed, not falling asleep because you're worrying. Because you say, I'm gonna work on that at 12:30. I'm gonna work on that at 12:30. And in the long run, over a course of a month, research shows that people worry less. They solve their problems better. And that's because instead of just going in circles in your head in this nebulous worry, you're like, is there something I can do about it or not?
Right. And I'm guessing in the in-between time, a lot of it goes away by the time you get to your appointment. Because like sometimes clients come to session and they'll say to me, I had 10 things, I can't even remember them now. I guess they're all fixed. You know? So a lot of the worries will handle themselves. And then the really important ones that are left, now you have your appointment time and you can sort through them.
Yep. And it's okay to even write down your worries. So like, oh, I'm worrying in the middle of the night. Okay, I'm going to put a note in my phone. I'm worried about this. And then I'm going to set my phone away, or like a Post-it note is probably better than having your phone in bed. And it trains your brain when to pick up and put down thoughts, you know, so that your brain's not choosing for you. Because our brain's purpose is not to make us happy. Our brain's purpose is to keep us alive. Right. So from a brain's perspective, worrying all the time is great.
Right.
But it's not helpful or happy inducing.
It's not pleasant. It's not pleasant. So Emma, tell us how they can find you, and maybe even how they can find your course that you mentioned with that skill building, because that sounded really helpful.
Yeah. So the easiest place to find me is on YouTube. If you search Therapy in a Nutshell, that is my YouTube channel. And, you know, I have other places like Instagram. You can find me under that handle as well. The course with the 30 skills for motion processing, I've put the whole thing for free up on YouTube. So if you want to watch it with ads, it's on YouTube. Okay. If you want to take the course, the link's in the description to any of my YouTube videos, and you can go buy the course and it comes with a workbook and no ads and some extra videos. So that's how you can take that course.